We have a picture of a turkey on the screen. We're going to be talking about turkey today. We're going to talk about two general topics. One topic is the kashrus of the turkey. I'm sure many of you are aware that there are some families that do not eat turkey. So we're going to discuss where that comes from and the back and forth when other people do it. And the other discussion is regarding eating turkey on Thanksgiving. This week is a Goyish Chaga called Thanksgiving. And we'll talk about that as well, with the back and forth about it, if it's okay or not to eat turkey or celebrate Thanksgiving in any kind of way. So regarding the kashrus, we're going to talk about in general kosher birds and something called Masaira. We had that in the Musagim on Girsa. Who remembers what Masaira means? Tradition. And then Masaira Sahidu, the tradition of the turkey. Essentially, the turkey is called in Hebrew Tarnagoil Hoidu. Hoidu means India, the country of India. And we're going to talk about that as well. Why is the turkey called chicken of India?
A what?
A chicken of India. Tarnagoil Hoidu. That's the way you call a turkey in Hebrew. So the pasuk says, the following are the list of birds which you're not allowed to eat, and they're shekets, they're not kosher, and there's a whole list. And the pasuk has a whole list of non-kosher birds. And it's Yadua, and the Rambam says this, that Simoni oif toher loy nisparish min ha-Torah, that in Torah and Chumash we don't have the simonim of kosher birds. Elamona minyan tmeim bilvad. The Torah only lists, like we saw before in the pasuk, all the ones that are tummy. We just quoted one pasuk, but there are a few more psukim. And what the Rambam paskins is ushar minei ha'if mutari. Meaning, in Torah, that Eibusha didn't tell us a simonim of kosher birds and not kosher birds, unlike when it comes to animals and fish. So by animals, we know that if it chooses cod, then it has split hooves. And by fish, if it has fins and scales, it's kosher. However, when it comes to birds, the Torah doesn't say simonim. The Torah just gives us a list of the non-kosher birds, and it's understood from that whatever is not on that list is automatically kosher. And we're going to get to that soon. No, the Rambam says what it's known from Chazal, that in the Torah it doesn't say simonim, it just gives a list, and it's understood that the list is the smaller. The Torah gives us the smaller list, meaning that really most birds in the world are kosher. It's just a smaller amount are non-kosher, and the list is the non-kosher birds. However, in Chazal there are simonim that are brought down. And Chazal tell us 4 simon. Number 1, she'ein lo etzba yisera, doesn't have an extra finger. Number 2, if it has a zefek, which is, I forget how it's called in English, one of the I think it's a gizzard inside. That's a kurkavan. A zefek is another part of the stomach, digestion system of the bird. And then if it's ein kurkavani niklaf, if the gizzard doesn't get peeled, and it's doides v'oichel. Gizzard is another part of the stomach. So basically, for a bird to be not kosher, it has to have these 4 simonim, or some of these 4 simonim, and the Gemara has a whole back and forth about the discussions about what the simonim are, and which of the non-kosher birds have the simonim, and so on.
Even one?
So you have to learn that Gemara to see all the back and forth. It's a lot, and Mitzvah one of the other shiurim maybe will focus more on each simon for itself when it's negeya. And however, when it comes to the Tarnagoil Hoidu, when it comes to the Halacha L'Maisa, the Shulchan Aruch paskins v'oif toher nechel b'masoiris. In order to eat a kosher bird, it's not enough to learn that Gemara and Chulin with the Simonim and to learn the Chumash and the Parshas Shmini and Parshas Re'eh. Rather, oif toher, there has to be a tradition. What does tradition mean? Says the Shulchan Aruch, v'hu sheyiyat davar pashut ba'isei mokim shezeh oif toher. It has to be something clear about all the Fruma Yidden in this city, in this country. This is a kosher bird. And the Ramah adds on that, the Ramah says the same thing, that you can only eat a bird that there's a masoidus, that it's tired. That's the way you're supposed to behave, and no one should change this. No one should start coming and saying, what do you mean? This bird has all the simonim, but I learned the Gemara and it comes out that it's kosher. No, if it's not a masoidus by you, you shouldn't be eating that bird. This is what the Shulchan Aruch paskins. The problem with the turkey is that the wild turkey, and the Muscovy duck, we'll talk about that later as well, are the 2 domesticated birds which are native to the New World, which means that till they came to America, in Europe and in Asia, and these countries, they did not have turkey. Ada Yom Hazeh, it's like that till today. The most turkey are produced in America, as you see, Minnesota, which is our next door neighbor. It's only a half hour from us. So they produce close to 20. This is from 2012. That's already 10 years ago. Today probably the numbers are different, but it's Masama Be'erich the same thing. That Minnesota, North Carolina, the state in America, that's where they raise the majority of turkeys because this is the natural habitat where the turkeys come from. Asher al Kain, if turkeys come from America, so the question is, what's the Messiah? Why? Because Columbus came to America, only the first time he came to America was in the year 1492. Who knows what's that in Hebrew? Hey Alofim Reish Nun Beis. So Columbus came in the year Hey Reish Nun Beis. Now he came from Europe and he came to America, and the Pashtus, over time, he ended up delivering and bringing stuff that he found in America to Europe and Asia. But till then, it wasn't there. And that's how the turkey came all over the world. So if so, the question remains, what is the Messiah? What is the tradition? How is it possible for Yidden to eat turkey? If l'chayra there was no Messiah because there were no Yidden living in America, so l'chayra, when Columbus brought the turkey back with him from America to Europe, so how can the Yidden in Europe have started eating turkey? Until today, what's the Asbara Sadvar? So there's a number of answers that are brought down. Some of them are satisfactory, some of them are not. One answer is that the Indians are really Aseres Hashvotim. That the native Indians were Aseres Hashvotim. And when Columbus came, so first of all, some people say Columbus was Jewish also. It's probably not true, but that's what people like to say. But he might have had Jews with him on the boat with him. Whatever the case, this is a svara, a very wilde svara, which doesn't have any source. Just a person came up and said, maybe this is the explanation, that the people, that the native Indians were Jews, and they were eating turkey, and they said, we have a Messiah that is kosher. They passed on the Messiah to Columbus' sailors. They came back to Europe, and they spread it over there. And that's how our Messiah goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu. Obviously very far-fetched and no sources at all. Another thing is brought down, that there's a Messiah from Sfard. That the Sfardish Yidden somehow had a Messiah. But this is what some Sfardim say, which is Bechlal not understood, because how can the Sfardish Yid have a Messiah on Turkey if Turkey didn't exist in Sfard before Haitian base? As we said before, clearly it came from America, unless you want to say that it's not true, but what everyone says that it came from America. But the Pashas, it's pretty much accepted, and no one argues on that. So if it came from America, how could the Yidden from Sfard have had a Messiah? So some people say this because Bechlal, by the Ashkenazi Yidden, the Sfardim were always like a myth and like a legend when no one knows too much about them. So they'll say, okay, they have the Messiah by them. But really, from a Al Pi Seichel, it's not understood how you can say such a thing, how you can say that they have the Messiah. So there's a letter of the Rebbe Maharash. The Rebbe Maharash actually was asked this question. Now, the Rebbe Maharash is talking about a bird called English henner. English henner would sound like hens from England. However, the people that the Bar Levin was the Rebbe's librarian and involved in the Igris, so he writes over there in the notes on the Rebbe Maharash's letter that he's talking about Turkey. So as far as I know, Turkey in Yiddish is called Indik, which is weiter like in Hebrew, India, Tarnagal Hoidu. We'll talk about that soon. But he says that he's talking about English Shahaner, which makes sense. He's talking about Turkey. So the Rebbe Maharash writes in that letter, one of the reasons to say why it's kosher is because it says in Allah, it says in Chazal, that animals that are not kosher cannot mate, cannot breed together. And the facts are that it's possible to breed together a turkey and a hen, and they'll be able to have eggs. It's not a common practice, and it's not done often, but it is possible. Asher al-Kain says that Rabbi Maharash, the fact that you can crossbreed a turkey and a hen, that shows us that they both have to be kosher. So even though the Shulchan Aruch says you have to have a Messiah, the Rabbi Maharash uses this as one of the svaras to say that the English henner would be kosher.
Only birds you can crossbreed?
Yeah. Another svara that's brought down is that turkey is a chicken. It's just bigger. It's really, they look very, very similar. A polka of a turkey and a polka of a chicken, but besides the size, their mamish look the same thing, and so do all the other parts of the chicken and the turkey. So Mamela, some people want to say that you don't need a Messiah on a larger size of the same bird. Because if it's the same species, just because it's bigger, it doesn't make it a different species. It doesn't need it a separate Messiah. This is a bit of a stretch to say because it's that they're very different. Even though they are the same bepnimius, but they are a separate species. That turkeys were only found in America, not in Europe. So bepashtus, it is a separate species. But this is as far as people might want to say. If I'm not mistaken, people say this, that a turkey is a chicken, and therefore You don't need a special Messiah just for turkey. Another sort of people bring down that there are simonim b'poil. The simonim that I mentioned before from Kulin, so all the simonim fit the turkey, which makes sense because, like I said before, the turkey is very similar to the chicken. So therefore, if it's similar in this, just like this chicken has all the kosher simonim, the turkey will have the simonim as well. But obviously, this is again, this for itself wouldn't work because we saw the Shulchan Aruch says simonim are not enough. You have to have a mesoida. But if you combine all these svardas together, that it has the simonim and is cooking zelazeh, and there was a mistake in Messiah, so then you can say that it's probably kosher. Another thing that's brought down in the Gala Maisa today is that B'Poel Mamish today we have a Messiah, meaning in everyone besides certain families, which we'll talk about that soon. Pretty much most of Klal Yisrael today eats turkey because in our area it's considered kosher. So even though, meaning this Svara is coming to say that even though if we would have lived 400 years ago, 500 years ago, we would have had a shaila if you can eat turkey or not. But today it's not a shaila because the Eibusher wouldn't have allowed Klal Yisrael to eat non-kosher for so many years, hundreds of years, thousands, millions of Yidden are eating turkey. To say that everyone's eating treif, that can't be. Hashem wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. There's a klal in Chazal. Chazal tell us that Eina Kadosh Baruch Hu maybe takal the Eibusher doesn't cause a tzaddik to eat not kosher, and so many tzaddikim have eaten this turkey, so it must be that it's kosher. And today we have the Messiah, and when Mashiach comes, he'll have to explain to us what happened to Messiah betos. So that's another svara. So, but again, what's the svara that he was talking about a mistake? So here we're going to discuss what's the reason why there was a mistake that they thought that there was where the Messiah came from, and also this will explain to us why is the turkey called turkey, and why is it called indik, and why is it in Hebrew called tarnug al hoidu. So on this one says on the top left, this is Spain, and Portugal is underneath it. It's not written down on the map. Over here on the bottom right is Indonesia, and here is India. India at the time, if I understand correctly, was a larger country, and this over here on this side was considered the edge of India. And in Indonesia, if I understand correctly, it might have either been a hemshach of India, or it would have been also, it could be his own country. Now, at the time when Columbus set sail, his goal was to go across the globe and go around on the other side and arrive on the other side to India. That's what he was thinking to do. The Poyol, when you turn the globe around, you end up seeing on the other side America. This is the other side of the globe. So here is Morocco, which is right in Portugal. So his goal was to sail across like this and get to the other side and get to India. The Poyol, he ended up landing over here, which is part of America, mid-America. Eventually he went south and went north, but this is where he ended up coming. When he landed in Chatchila, he thought that he's in India. That's what he thought. And that's also the reason why the Native Americans are called Indians. Why they're called Indians, it's not India, this is America. The reason why they're called Indians is because he thought that he arrived in India. He thought he came from the other side. And when the birds started being imported from here, from India, back to Europe, people said, oh, these birds come from India. So in Yiddish it became the name Indik, and that translated eventually to modern Hebrew into Tarnug al hoidu as well. According to this explanation, this is what tell now what I said is pretty much true. So people want to say like this, that when Columbus came back, he brought the birds with him from this direction. Now what happened was there were Yidden living in this area, and they were all expelled. They were expelled to Europe, to Russia, to Poland, and they went down here. They went around here. Some went then south to Morocco, to these countries over here. But then they heard that this bird came. Where did the bird come from? It came all the way, as far as they're concerned, from India, from Indonesia. So, and at that point in India, there were Fruma Yidden living. So they sent messengers from here, from Ukraine, from Poland, from Russia, and from the countries, in the Sephardic countries. They sent messages to India, and they asked them, there's a bird that's coming from you. It seems like a chicken. Do you have a Messiah? So they said, yes, we have a Messiah on chicken. That's kosher. They didn't realize they're talking about turkey. They thought it was the same chicken that they had by them. And they passed on the Messiah, the Fruma Yidden in India, back to the Yidden in Europe, it says in Russia, Poland, and Yidden in Sephardic countries, that yes, we have a Messiah. Oh, Fruma Yidden have a Messiah. We can continue eating it. And the Mela, this is how the Messiah came betos, why Klal Yisrael started eating the Messiah. This is a svara that people want to say, which Al Pi Seichel makes a lot of sense, how the Messiah came in the first place. Like I said before, Aseres HaShvatim is a very far-fetched svara, and the fact that the Columbus had Jewish sailors, and the other svaras as well are a bit tough to put together. But you're putting this all together, that the Messiah was betos, and now we have this Messiah, and he's cooking zelazah, and the fact that they have that everyone eats it, that's why people say today it's kosher.
So you're saying it was like a mistake that they gave him Torah?
That's a svara. V'lochi. So this is the Rebbe Maharash is quoting, B'kol halein time anirali shemutar la'oichlam, I think it's permitted to eat them. The Rebbe Maharash paskins, v'yoichlu anovim v'yismo, it's based on the pasuk, everyone can eat and be happy. U'bireinu oichli ma'isa b'lishum pikbuk bayos, and l'babish, everyone eats it without any problems. V'shamati shekvar hoyach kira b'zeh v'chiro oisam, everyone is machshir. And he says that the chumras come from the shachtim and from the shlachtoises. Why? Because when the shochet, when he would check the chicken is smaller. So for every chicken he shechts, you pay him an amount, and he takes a polka for himself. When it comes to a turkey, so since a chicken can feed maybe 3-4 people, a turkey can feed like 7-8 people. So if you have to feed a family of 10 people, you have to shech 2-3 chickens, but you can shech 1 turkey. So the sheikh is getting less money. So therefore, the sheikhim are the ones that are trying to make the turkey puzzle. This is what the Rebbe Maharash is saying. Akopanim the poil today is interesting. A fact that again 2015, 7 years ago, but not too far off. Israel is the most consumes the most turkey per person. The average person throughout a year in Israel eats 127 pounds of turkey. Can I know? Most of that is in shawarma, by the way. The famous Masayris of the Shalah, which I'm sure many of you have heard, that the Shalah officially told his his children, not to eat turkey. And the Tosfos Yom Tov, it's not as common, not as known. He also gave on that Messiah. The reason why the Shalah said not to eat turkey is a combination of the fact that he didn't live in the times of Columbus. He lived about 100 years after that. But he already in his time, I guess his time, he felt there was no proper Messiah. In addition to that, they say that the Shalah once saw a turkey that was killing someone, killing another bird, so he felt it is a deiris. It doesn't have the kosher simonim. What's interesting is that the Shalah didn't write it down. This is all Baal Peh. It's not written down the Shalah Sfarim and other Sfarim as well. This is all a Baal Peh, which it's interesting that Ad Hayom there are families that keep this Messiah, meaning even families that are not religious. There are stories of not religious people that they eat Nachmanul Islam, Treif Mamish, but turkey they're not going to eat because they have a Messiah from their great grandfather to Shalah. I want to just share with you that I'm a grandson of the Shalah as well. However, my grandmother told me that she has a Kabbalah from her father that the Messiah is not about turkey, it's about duck. Now, when she told us to me a long time ago, I never understood. Ma kesher duck. Everyone eats duck. Duck is for sure kosher. But then when I did the research on the turkey, whoever remembers the slide we had before, that besides the turkey, there's another bird which is native to North America, which is called the the Muscovy duck or Muscati duck, and that duck is native to America, and on that duck there was taka also a very big shaila if it's kosher or not, because there was no Messiah. Some say it's part of the general ducks. It's also kosher. So Kopanim in my family, we do not eat duck. I don't know about you guys, if you guys usually eat duck at home, but that's the Messiah by us. But most of the Edikach and the Shalom, their Messiah is not to eat turkey, and like I said, they say as well. Some families, some kids do whatever they want, but this is the Messiah. Adkan is regarding the general kashrus of the turkey. Now we're going to discuss what about eating it on Thanksgiving. So here we're going to discuss what's the shaila and what are the tzdodim and what are the shittas. So the pasuk says, we bring this pasuk up, we're up often lately. And you're not allowed to go in the ways of the goy. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, Yerideh Siman Kofayin Ches. We cannot go in the ways of the goyim. We cannot be similar to them. The Rebbe wants us to be separate from them. It's Isra to go in the ways of the goyim. What does that include? So the Shulchan Aruch says, something which goyim do, which is a purpose in it, to goyim. For example, Shadarko, the way of the goyim is whoever is a professional doctor, he has special doctor clothes, or what's called in the hospital language, special scrubs. Malbus miyuchat shenikar beishu reifei uman. Mutar lalav. If you go into a hospital, there's a standard the standard color coding of certain scrubs, certain color clothes, or what the doctors wear, what the nurses wear, so you can right away see who's a doctor and who can help you out if you need help. So says the Shulchan Aruch, says the Ramah, that it's mutar. Such a thing, if a Jew becomes a doctor, he's allowed to wear these clothes. This is the ways of the goyim, because it makes sense. It's a tayel, there's a purpose over it. It's not time to be like a goyim. There's a reason. People should identify as a doctor. So too, if they're doing it because of COVID, and it's an honor kind of thing, or there's another reason, mutar. So we're doing things that the goyim do. If there's a normal reason for it, then it's not an isra. They say chlu b'chukas hagoyim. And he continues with something which is pritzus, which is, by the way, the color red is brought down over there. The color red is considered a pritzus color, so bright red is forbidden to wear. Something which they do with there's no reason for it. The ikal mechashbei mishum darchei ha'amori. Ikal mechashbei mishum darchei ha'amori. There's a chash of darchei ha'amori that maybe the reason why they're doing this is because they're going in the guys. There's some kind of avodah zarah involved. Such things are awesome. So if there's no clear reason for what the goyim are doing, we don't know the reason, then we're chayshish that it might have a problem of avodah zarah or darchei ha'amori, something superstitious, and therefore becomes awesome. So the question now is, what exactly is the history of Thanksgiving? Where does it come from? What's the source for it? And we'll see. If it makes sense, according to Shulchan Aruch, then it's permitted. If it doesn't make sense, then if there's no proper explanation for it, then it should be also, as we see. So this is the shaila regarding Thanksgiving. So the simple thing would be to check up on the internet. However, Abraham Lincoln said that the problem with quotes on the internet is that you can't confirm if they're authentic or not, right?
No internet back then.
Same intelligent guy, doesn't stop. Can I know it? Akopanim, no offense, but it's a sprutz. Akopanim says so the question how to find out. So it's taka unclear. If you're going to do research, there's going to be different opinions. Lakan, what happened in the first Thanksgiving? When was it exactly? Why did they celebrate and so on? There's no clark. So therefore, there are three big rabbanim that have discussed it, many more rabbanim as well. And these rabbanim paskin, as we'll see, different piskei din. The first Rav is Rabbi Hutner, and the second was Rabbi Feinstein, Rabbi Soloveitchik, and like I said, other rabbanim as well. We're going to focus on these three opinions. All of these three people had a special kasher with the Rebbe. Rabbi Hutner actually was the Rebbe's chavrusa for a while. The Friedrich Rebbe asked the Rebbe to learn with Rabbi Hutner Chassidus, if I'm not mistaken. Rabbi Feinstein, there was a lot of correspondence. The Rebbe would send people to him, and he respected the Rebbe very much. And Rabbi Soloveitchik was also very close with the Rebbe. I just saw a zettel where Rabbi Soloveitchik's Talmidim wrote something to the Rebbe, and in their letter they wrote to the Rebbe that we know that Rabbi Soloveitchik and the Rebbe are very, very good friends. So the Rebbe writes, the Rebbe wrote on that, a lot more than you know, meaning I'm a lot more of a friend with you, don't even know how close we really are. So, Rabbi Hutner writes like this, regarding your shaila, regarding celebrating anything to do with Thanksgiving. So he says, the chkir would only be if it's something which is a one-time thing. But since we have something which goes every year, they celebrate again and again, it turns into a moyed. And whoever has anything to do with Thanksgiving, you're balkorchay, that you're mishtatef in a moyed, in a yom tov of the goyim. And to establish a moyed, not based on Torah, is min achamurei chamures. It's one of the most chamurdik things.
Who's Rabbi?
Rabbi Yitzchak Hutner. If I'm not mistaken, he was in Entebbe. He was one of the people on the plane over there. The Rebbe spoke about him by Fabrengen. The Rebbe said that he's like he had a big koch Rambam. Whatever. It was a big Rav, a big Talmud Chacham.
What's the question? Should we celebrate Thanksgiving?
Yes, he says any kind of participation in Thanksgiving is a problem. Because this would all be true, even if the Kviyas is based on the Jewish calendar. It would also be Chom. But since it's based on the Goyish calendar, it goes by, I don't know exactly how, the last Thursday in November, Psazoi. So whenever it comes to the Goyish calendar, we always understood that we always say Limisporam. Whenever we say a Goyish date, we say according to the Goyish date. So B'meila just already saying that this and this date is going to be this and this Yom, this and this Chaga is giving covet to Avodah Zarah. Obviously, it's forbidden, and he says this is Mamish Achshash Avodah Zarah. So Rabbi Hutner says you cannot have anything to do with Thanksgiving. It's mamish, a tremendous shayla b'Avodah Zarah. Stay away from as far as possible. Even on a one-time thing. According to him, it's mashma. Even if you have a bar mitzvah on Thanksgiving night, you shouldn't do it that day. You shouldn't make any kind of celebration on that day. You shouldn't be a chash that you have to do with Thanksgiving. And there is a source for that as well, because one of the quotes that's brought on the internet about Thanksgiving is that people says they survived, they were giving thanks to the Goyish God who supposedly protected and championed the European invasion. So he says there is a strong svara to say what he's saying, that the reason why they established this is to thank Avodah Zarah. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, he brings two svaras to make it asur. The first kavanah, the things that he says over here is like this. He says regarding so he says you might argue that over here it's not stam. Here there's a reason why they celebrate Thanksgiving. The official explanation is that the people that came to America, it was very, very cold in the winter, and they weren't able to. A lot of times throughout the winter they had nothing what to eat, and when they survived the winter, whoever survived, they celebrated the fact that they're still alive right now, and they have what to eat, and they have turkey, and that's how it came. So he says if you're doing something which doesn't make sense to make into a Yom Tiv, that itself is Darchei HaMoed. Now, Moshe is Machadish that even though in Shulchan Aruch it says, we quoted before, that if they have a minhag which doesn't have a reason, that it's Asur, but if it has a reason, it's Mutar, he says it means that it has to have a reason to make it into something. But to go and make a Yom Tiv out of something which doesn't deserve to become a Yom Tiv, says that Moshe, that's Darchei HaMoed. So he says the fact that there were people coming to America the whole time already. So there was no chash that America is not going to continue. So to make a whole big chaga out of it, a whole Yom Tov out of it, is Darchei HaMoed. That's one thing that he says. And then he brings a Ramban. That the Ramban says that when a goy makes a new Yom Tov, or any person, it's over on a lav. It's bechlal loisoisif, loitoisif. So B'meila says Rabbi Moshe, when people come and make up new days, new Yom Tovim, so bechlal is on the calendars, all these today's this and this day, today's pickle day, or whatever, all these bavmaises. So he said, those I don't know what the meaning of this is. But when you make it into a proper chaga, which everyone that they don't go to work, and there's a whole they celebrate, talk about it, v'chulu. So the Ramban says it's an isur of Baal Tosef. So Rabbi Moshe brings from that as well that it's a problem of Baal Tosef. Regarding this thing over here, Stam, this is a little bit of the history. So officially, this is I think one of the most accurate. I don't know my understanding of what actually happened. That is 1621. Yeah, what year is that in the Hebrew? I don't know myself. It's something Pei Aleph. It's tough Pei Aleph maybe. So the Europeans and the Indians, they had a celebration together, so it's called a Thanksgiving. However, for close to 200 years, there was no such official thing as Thanksgiving. Random people, random states made random festivities for it. In 1863, that's when, in the middle of the Civil War, where President Lincoln, the one that said not to quote things on the internet, right? So he made an official Thanksgiving to be held each November. It was because of a certain teacher. A woman decided to thank God for what we're having. So there's an element of thanking Hashem over here, but there's also they suddenly made it into a Yom Tov 200 years later. So what Moshe is saying, to randomly make a Yom Tov 100 years later, is talking very strange. So the Mela, this is the svara that why it's also it's Darchei HaMoed, and it's also a problem of Baal Tosef. However, Rabbi Moshe has a lot of tshuvas. Some of them are a bit conflicting, and somebody asked him, here you wrote this, here you wrote that. So Rabbi Moshe has a whole explanation of what he really meant, and his maskana is to be kviyas, do anything is for sure asur. On a one-time basis, if you have a simcha on that day anyway, no, he's more makel. So he's a bit more makel than Rabbi Hutner, but he's for sure not makel to have a kviyas every year to have a party and have turkey. Ledina asur ach pam achas bizdamnus. Hey, this is Rabbi Moshe's quote. So even to celebrate one time a Thanksgiving dinner is forbidden, but to make a simcha that day, the gam sudas mereus ba'amus, you happen to have a party in your house, you have a fabrengen, you have a birthday, something like that, there's no problem at all. However, he still concludes this is Rabbi Moshe's shit. Rabbi Soloveitchik, I haven't found on writing what he writes about it, but it was known that the day that is called Thanksgiving, Rabbi Soloveitchik would start his shir earlier than usual, in order to end earlier than usual, so he can catch his plane back to Boston. Rabbi Soloveitchik lived in Boston, but he was at Rosh Yeshiva in Manhattan. So he would fly back and forth to give a shir to the yeshiva. I'm not sure if he flew on a daily basis or a few times a week. I don't know how it worked. But on Kolpanim, on Thanksgiving, he always made sure to finish a shir earlier so he can go back home to Boston to have a meal with turkey and so on. So he was a big Talmud Chacham and a big Rav, and he clearly paskined that it's mutter to celebrate it and eat it without any problems. However, we always have to add that even though seemingly it was important for him for Thanksgiving to change the time of the shear when it starts, but it wasn't enough to end the shear. On Thanksgiving 1976, that'll be Daf Lamed Vav, there was a famous Thanksgiving shear where the Rav, the Rav is Rabbi Soloveitchik, his Talmudim called the Rav. The Rav spent 5 hours. Most of it he was quiet, working through a Tosfos. Now the Shamash was telling him, I know the plane is waiting, or you have to catch the flight. After the second or third time that the Shamash passed him a note about the flight back to Boston, the Rav turned to him and said, no one can leave here until we have understood what Tosfos is saying. So the Mele, those that want to follow the Rabbi Soloveitchik and making sure that they celebrate Thanksgiving and having turkey v'chulu, they also have to make sure to spend 5 hours on the Tosfos and back and work hard on it until they actually figure it out. This is one picture. Rabbi Soloveitchik. He came to the Rebbe's Farbrengen. So there was one time that he came in Yud for I forget which year it was that he came especially for the Rebbe's Farbrengen. It's a whole story about that as well. Maskana, what do we do? So there's 3 rabbanim, and like in all things, you have to have a seilach harav. However, we're going to finish, if this works, a video of the Rebbe talking about Thanksgiving. The Rebbe is talking about the concept and the history. The Rebbe does not talk about celebrating it. So this is just a story. The Chayder, I'm going to show the Sikh in a moment. The Sikh it's a 2-minute Sikh. It's just to show us that the Chayder, the Rebbe does not agree with Rabbi Hutner, because if it would be considered Mamash Avodah Zarah, I don't think the Rebbe would address it at all. But it could be that he agrees with Rabbi Moshe, or it could be that he agrees with Rabbi Soloveitchik. I know what this.
Da bis habe ich vom Live Comedy der mit 8 als an die Sina State da kommt vor von der man hier da was er die Nacht gewesen sind die Tag von Tour die Karte von Erfolgen in der neuen und noch Series und viele Sachen passiert Case unendlich von der Muna in den Ewigsten, an der Ewigsten ist der Eber und man hier in den Pasch, ich sehe es mal, ich sehe Linie Brot und ich sehe als volle Brot, wie hat die Kache mit uns gewegen, als Achor, als Miete, schon, als ich komme nach dem Tag, auf der wie der Mond hier, dass noch einmal der Mond und noch der Marketing sein und noch der Marketing gerne alle in der Leben was sind da nicht hart zu go ja die Kache das die wollen eingestellt als viele die noch schon was sie wissen in Herzen leben aber ist das Teil schön Himmel hat Rom nicht in der Mutter nach Gott ist Rom an der Mutter in der Welt hat die ganze hier Hoch aber immer sehr besser das nicht der Gott hat ist nicht spannend super die Leben der Marisha aber es kam als sich statt der alte Jahr wird dann verbunden Sina State ich sehe die so der erste nicht mit einem Herzog und mit überkam von Nazareth was die nicht auf der Rubel und die was auf die Idee der Jante ist der Gewerb von die Schiene und danach ist das als sie aufgenommen mit den
Zozo.